The primary election is just 9 days away, but voters are already casting their ballots by mail and at early voting locations across South Florida and Miami-Dade. One of the most closely watched local races is for the Miami-Dade County Commission in District 6. This is what District 6 looks like. It takes in West Miami, suburban areas down to South Miami, as well as Miami International Airport and that Mel Reese Golf Course area where the city of Miami wants to build a big soccer stadium and office complex. This district has been represented for more than 20 years by Rebecca Sosa, but she has been term limited out and 4 candidates have stepped forward to try to claim the seat. The candidates are Jorge Force, a Coral Gables City Commissioner, Daniel Fernandez, a software company owner, member of the Miami-Dade Republican Executive Committee, Victor Vazquez, a member of the Miami Springs City Council, a longtime educator as well, and Kevin Marino Cabrera, a Coral Gables marketing executive who was the Florida campaign director for Donald Trump 2 years ago. We have 2 of the 4 candidates with us live this morning. Daniel Fernandez just dropped out, but we are happy to welcome the gentleman you see here, Jorge Force, the Coral Gables Commissioner. Jorge, good morning. Glad to see you.
Good morning, Michael. How are you? Thank you for having me.
Well, I'm very glad. Commissioner, you have been endorsed by Rebecca Sosa, wonderful person, served well for over 20 years. But of course, it's going to take more than her blessing to get elected here. What is your main issue? Why do you think you are the best candidate here?
Well, I think, Michael, I'm the one that has experience, truly, in governing on a local level. With me, you don't have to wonder how I'm going to govern or legislate. I've been doing it already now for 3.5 years. I've shown myself to be a voice of reason, somebody concerned with the issues that truly matter to District 6 in our immediate vicinity. I also have no special conflicts or conflicts of interest, Michael. I noticed you mentioned that my main opponent, Kevin Marino Cabrera, represents that he's a marketing executive, when in fact, he's a lobbyist, a career lobbyist. That his financial disclosure will show that all his income comes from that activity, and that he's, until very recently, registered as the registered lobbyist on behalf of numerous companies trying to obtain multi-million-dollar contracts from Miami-Dade County. I think my ability as a private attorney during my private life to come into the county commission as I have on the city commission of Coral Gables allows me to keep my career privately and my public service in 2 silos and not be able to, I should say, place the interests of the residents first.
All right. Well, we understand, and I have to point out that we invited Mr. Cabrera, tried repeatedly to get him to take part, so he was not reachable, never called us back, so he is not here to defend himself. As long as he registers as a lobbyist, that is a legal profession, may not always bring glory to the lobbyists. But anyway, I need to ask you about the urban development boundary, one of the big issues in Miami-Dade County. As one of 13 commissioners, you would have a vote to either maintain the boundary or allow development beyond it. Generally speaking, are you in favor of maintaining the UDB or moving beyond it?
Well, it's difficult to speak about the UDB generally, since the UDB spans across the entire county. Now, every application to expand the UDB, and there have been many in the past, and there was one recently, and there will be more in the future, will probably deal with a different area, expanding in different directions, and much must be considered based on the standards set forth by county law, which is whether it is truly necessary.
Yeah. What about this development that has been proposed in Deep South Dade, right off the Turnpike extension, 800 acres for warehouses? It's still sort of in the mix. It's not going anywhere right now, but you may have to vote on it if you become a member of the commission. What do you think how would you vote?
It is still in the mix, Michael. And in my opinion, that particular application is not as far along as it really needs to be in terms of being fully baked. There are various questions of infrastructure and necessity, which are, for me at least, and I'm speaking from the outside looking in, not yet being there on the dais, but it has several questions that are still unanswered for me. I think that I can see necessity rising to the level that it needs to be for perhaps expansions of the UDB, not the entire UDB, but small sections of it. But what I always tell folks is that my platform speaks to it as a family first platform. The way to really my heart on that in the future, and again, every application to be considered on an application by application basis, is that eventually we will find ourselves in a situation where we may need to fill in certain enclaves of that UDB for single family residences.
Right.
Now, with respect to the necessity of industrial and 800 acres of it in that particular area, I have not been, at least at this time, and I don't have the benefit of being briefed to the level that the sitting commissioners do, found myself to be in a place where I'd be willing to seriously consider that at this time. Now, necessity is something that changes every day. Something that is not quite necessary enough today may become necessary a year from now.
Yeah.
But that's why we have to take a very close look at it. It's not, and expanding the UDB by all means is not something that should be taken lightly.
Yeah. All right. We have about a minute left, but I need to ask you, you have been briefed on a whole issue of increasing density along rail lines, along Metro Rail, and the city of Coral Gables obviously has Metro Rail running through it, and county planners say one way to provide affordable workforce housing is to build it along those public transportation lines. Where do you fall on that issue?
So the concept makes perfect sense that you increase density along our rail lines to promote transportation, reduce traffic. However, I was very involved in what the plan you're referring to as the rapid transit zone concept, was very involved with it on the city side. And my biggest problem with it was that it sort of tried to apply a one-size-fits-all approach to increasing density and types of housing along the rail. That plan, I think, works great in certain areas, doesn't work great in others. With the city of Coral Gables, and to Commissioner Gilbert, who was the sponsor of that piece of legislation, to his credit, he listened and he really took a good look at it and met with us on several occasions. In Coral Gables, we were able to show that there has been an increase of density along the rail over the last few years.
Sure, anybody driving on US 1 sees the increase in density there. Jorge Flores, great to be able to speak with you, and we are glad to take a look at a important Miami-Dade County Commission race, and good luck.
Thank you very much.
All right, up next, another candidate in the same race for Miami-Dade Commission in District 6, Victor Vazquez. We have one more candidate to speak to in this District 6 Miami-Dade County Commission race, and it is Victor Vazquez, longtime educator. We ought to refer to him as Dr. Vazquez. He earned a PhD, and he is also a member of the Miami Springs City Council. Dr. Vazquez, welcome. Great to see you.
Great to see you too, Michael.
All right. Well, let's begin with what is your major issue? Why are you running in this race? What do you bring to it that the other candidates do not?
Well, I bring a combination of major issues. So affordable housing, economic development, and rail transportation. My past history in higher education has been with workforce development, economic development, working in private government partnerships in developing communities and building housing and getting all the stakeholders together. And I've done that as well with my position as a city councilman in Miami Springs.
In Miami Springs. Yeah, Dr. Vazquez, Mayor Daniela Levine Cava has put forth a really ambitious program with roughly, I think, 14,000 affordable homes are supposed to come online in the next year in Miami-Dade County. Clearly, that is something then that you support.
Absolutely, and I think it's a good beginning, Michael. I like to look at things more comprehensively. I think that we need to look at affordability of housing county-wide, but I think the mayor has made an important step. The idea of bringing together the usage of this land and bringing together educational employees to live in those neighborhoods, I think it's a good start. But I think we need to have a more robust and larger planning effort that brings all the stakeholders to look at all the affordability issues that we have in the county.
Right. What about higher density along transportation lines, like along Metro? You just heard me speaking to Jorge Flores the city of Coral Gables has been a little reluctant to, embrace that idea. Where do you stand on it?
Well, I think, first of all, I like the idea. I'm a transportation guy. I grew up riding subways in New York City to work and to school. So I understand the importance of it. And I understand how difficult it was to me to get to Miami-Dade College in the morning without good transportation. I had to use my car, which I really didn't want to do. But I think that the idea of density is the correct idea, but it has to be locally applied. I think there are more places down in the southern part of the district, in the southern part of the county where this is more feasible. But I think having that kind of density makes a lot of sense, and I support it. It doesn't work for Miami Springs because we don't have the room for that. And that was our conversation when Commissioner Gilbert proposed this one corner of Miami Springs that's all single property area, and he understood that we were not, it was not going to work for us. But generally speaking, I'm in favor of it.
Yeah. And the urban development boundary line, generally speaking, is that something that you would respect until proven otherwise, or would you maintain it the way it is?
I want to keep it the way it is. I'm a little nervous about pushing those boundaries. I'm concerned about our climate. I'm concerned about some other issues. I know that there are arguments for, well, what about this project or that project? And I think that that could be a slippery slope. I think that when it was established, there was a lot of thinking went into that, and I think we ought to hold to that. Now, what happens in the future? I think we need to protect the Everglades and so forth. So I'm really hesitant to consider expanding that, even on a case-by-case basis.
Yeah. Well, one of the criticisms of that proposed warehouse district in Deep South Dade is that it would interfere with efforts to clean up Biscayne Bay, and Biscayne Bay has been a top priority for so many of us. My colleague Louis Aguirre reports on it every week about the bay, and to her credit, Mayor Levine Cava has put a czar for Biscayne Bay renewal. Where do you stand on that?
Precisely. I think that the development that interferes with cleaning up the bay, it's an absolutely no-brainer for me, and I agree with that. Now, those are the concerns that I have, because so oftentimes we do things here to try to resolve one situation, and we don't look at the impact across the board. Right. And that's the problem that we have here with this issue, with this particular project. Yeah,
Dr. Vazquez, one last question here. As you know, voters across the state voted, I guess 2 years ago, to say that Miami-Dade County has to have a sheriff in 2024. As a member of the commission, if you're elected, you're going to get a chance to sort of narrow the sheriff's responsibilities, because currently the sheriff is the Miami-Dade Police Department director, reports directly to the mayor, and the system seems to work pretty well, doesn't it?
Yes, it does. But we're in a very interesting transformative time here in the county. Since 2020 to 2024, the commission is going to change its composition. And in the meantime, we also elected a woman mayor. So a sheriff coming on in 2 years is going to be quite a challenge and quite an interesting thing to do. I'm going to be looking for is how the past practice has been. What does the state actually require that the sheriff do? There are some written things. And then how does that apply to us? And how do we balance the policing and the budgetary responsibilities of the county?
All right, Dr. Victor Vazquez, great to speak with you. Good luck with your campaign. See what happens August 23rd.
Thank you, sir.